Science has discovered that our bodies respond differently to human music versus AI music. This is crazy. As you can see here, I'm on an article and I am going to skip around a little bit, but to show you the highlights, a new study explored if human-generated music by AI can be as emotionally impactful as human-composed music when paired with videos. Researchers found that while AI music could evoke similar emotional feelings in viewers, it also prompted different physiological responses linked to attention and arousal. So going down here, just kind of show you, we have a few different groups. The first group listened to human-created music. The second group heard music generated by AI using sophisticated and detailed prompts. Basically, like Suno or Udio, as we all know, you type in a prompt, it creates a song. And going down here, third group also listened to music created by AI, but this time it was using simpler and less detailed prompts, right? So in some cases, it was very specific. Up here, like the prompts were using things like horror, suspenseful, romantic, etc. This one is just general, right? And here's what's interesting. During the experiment, the participants sat in a laboratory wearing headphones while their biological signals were monitored. The results from the biological measurements revealed several differences between the conditions. Well, when participants listened to either of the AI-generated songs, their pupils dilated more widely compared to when they listened to human-created music. Kind of interesting that there was more of a physiological visual response, if I'd word it like that, like a physical response. This suggests that the music from AI may have required more mental effort to process or was perceived as more arousing. And I want to stress, arousing doesn't necessarily mean sexual, right? Just in general, like it was more provoking, if I'd word it like that. Also, which is really weird, the participants' blink rates also show differences. The group that heard AI from detailed keyword prompts had a higher blink rate, which is interesting, than the group that heard AI music from simpler emotion response. Blink rate can be an indicator of cognitive load or attention. So for some reason, it requires more cognitive power, it seems like, to listen to AI music. When analyzing the participants' self-reported feelings, the researchers found that the emotional valence, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, valence, or the positive or negative quality of the emotion felt was consistent across all three groups. This indicates that the source of the music did not change the fundamental emotional character of the experience. However, participants reported feeling significantly more aroused by both types of AI music compared to the human-created ones. So it's interesting that the emotions, positive or negative, felt were consistent. AI versus human, pretty much consistent. That being said, there was more arousal when it comes to listening to AI music compared to human music. The study also examined how well the music fit visuals, a bit of a different thing, but very similar. Participants rated the music created by AI from detailed keyword prompts as being the most congruent with the videos, which is interesting. Maybe it's because it was very descriptive to be like, if you have a horror video, you say, I want a horror song. I have a video doing X, Y, and Z, you create a prompt. So I guess that makes some sense. In contrast, when asked about how familiar it is, participants found that the human-created music to be significantly more familiar than either the AI-generated soundtracks. This may be because human composers often follow established musical conventions in film scoring that listeners recognize, while AI may have sounded more novel or unconventional, or basically different. This is incredibly intriguing, and as far as I know, this is the first study really looking at human music versus AI and the differences, and not only that, but how do people respond to it. Now, as I showed you, and as we read through the article and briefly touched upon different sections, emotionally, it seemed like people's reactions were about the same for the most part, but the physiological response was different. So there could be a couple things going on here, being honest. And again, this is me just spitballing as a musician, as someone who's done a lot of videos about AI music and studied a lot of it. Very interesting landscape of what's evolving. One, in general, as I said, in relation to film scoring, it does seem like that the film scoring the AI used was different. So maybe the cognitive load, maybe us processing something that we're not used to, created some type of physiological response that was stronger. Because cognitively, we have to be like, wait a minute, this is not what I'm used to. I'm used to this pattern when it comes to a film score. I'm used to this song sounding a given way, and then boom. Another thing, and this is something that I'm actually kind of curious about. Again, these are all theories, just kind of talking off the cusp. Let me know what you think in the comments. Two is, I wonder if this is what I'm going to call an uncanny music valley or musical uncanny valley. Now, in case you don't know what that is, the uncanny valley is this weird psychological phenomenon where if, let's say, take graphics or CGI, if, let's say, you're creating a person, well, there's a point where the more realistic the person looks, the more we're like, whoa, they look so human, right? However, there is a certain area called the uncanny valley when it looks too close to being human, too similar to being human, but not exactly human. Our brains almost respond the opposite way. Our brains say, whoa, wait a minute. Something's off here. I know this is not human. And it almost is, I'm going to be honest, there's some images, if you want to Google uncanny valley, there's some images that make you feel super uncomfortable. Because our brain's like, wait a minute, it's almost like this weird, again, kind of odd paradox where the closer something comes to being human, the more we're like, oh wow, that looks so realistic, it looks so real, whoa, the graphics are great, blah, blah, blah. But then at a certain level, when it becomes too close to being human, it actually switches where we get very uncomfortable. There was even one incident when it comes to the original Shrek movie where I think it was Fiona looked too close to being human. And it actually triggered the uncanny valley in kids when they did testing. They actually had to make Fiona look less human in order for us to process her better, if I'd word it like that, right? So basically our bodies, in some sense of it, when things sound too close to being human or look too close to being human, but they're not, we respond in a negative reaction. It gives you anxiety, it makes you feel uncomfortable, makes you feel weird, etc., etc. On that note, literally and figuratively on that note, I wonder maybe number two, maybe something going on with this physiological response, maybe it's some musical uncanny valley. Maybe we can tell in some interesting way, shape, or form, maybe we can tell that what's going on is that when it comes to this uncanny valley musically, we know it's actually not human. Whether we know it consciously or not, maybe we can tell in some sense of it that when we hear it, we're like, wait a minute, this sounds so close to being human, so close to being a real singer or whatever, but it's not. It's definitely not. And maybe this causes us some kind of, not negative reaction, because they did talk about it emotionally, that the emotions were the same, but maybe physically our bodies, whether we know it or not, are responding way of like, wait a minute, something seems off. Like our spidey senses are tingling, so to speak. Maybe that causes the arousal, as I talked about physiologically. Maybe that causes the pupil dilation of our bodies kind of maybe even encountering some odd fight or flight mode. Like when it comes to the uncanny valley, again, if you Google it, you'll see all these pictures. It is weird. When you look at some of these pictures, you're like, wait a minute, why does this seem so off? You almost can't put your finger on it. You're like, I can't pinpoint it. It's not the eyes, it's not the nose, it's not the face. Just something about this makes me feel very, very off. So two, maybe there is some kind of uncanny valley. So one, like I said, kind of talking about these couple of different points. One, maybe it's just something we're not used to. Maybe the way AI music creates things is something we're not used to. Two, again, like I said, maybe there's some kind of musical uncanny valley where we can tell it's not human, but it's so close to being human that now it triggers some kind of interesting physiological response. Three, another thing I was thinking is maybe there's some kind of complexities. Maybe in some ways, in an odd perspective, maybe like AI music is more complex. So kind of similar to the first point, but a little bit different, where maybe the complexities of AI music is just something we're not used to when it comes to a lot of human-made music. If you think about it, a lot of this human-made music typically is very simple. I'm not saying it's always simple, but I think that sometimes it's a very like standard thing. And maybe AI music kind of deviates from that. So it gets kind of similar to the first point, but there is an interesting thing to note here. And that is this, that for better or for worse, love it or hate it, I guess depending on how you look at it, I guess tomato, tomato, there is a noticeable physiological response when we listen to AI music than when we listen to human-made music. And what I wonder is, as time goes on, does that mean AI music will continue to get better, where maybe that's non-existent? Maybe we genuinely don't respond that way, but there is something going on. That to me is what's so intriguing. There is something going on that if, let's say, and I said this before in so many videos, we've definitely passed the musical Turing test, meaning if I showed you two songs and I said which one's human, which one's AI, most people would not be able to tell the difference. That being said, in some interesting way, shape, and form, our bodies can tell the difference. Physiologically, we respond differently. Even if consciously we might not know if it's music, if it's human or AI, physiologically, we somehow do know.